What would you do if you discovered that the everyday man you knew and worked with is a man with unmatched skills and a deep hidden past? In this pulsating thriller, Robert McCall seems like an everyday man, working at a local store and living a simple life. But when a brutal encounter with the Russian Mafia endangers an innocent young woman, McCall unleashes a side of himself no one saw coming. With a cold, calculated efficiency, he becomes the judge and the executioner, taking on an entire criminal empire. Get ready for a thrilling ride where justice is swift, and McCall's vengeance is unstoppable. Robert McCall lives a quiet, unassuming life working at Home Mart, where he is well-liked and always willing to lend a hand to his co-workers. His past remains a mystery to everyone around him. He helps his friend Ralphie lose weight so he can become a security guard, offering advice to focus on progress rather than perfection when he catches Ralphie eating chips. Robert suffers from insomnia and obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, which makes him very precise in his daily routine. Unable to sleep, he spends his nights at a local diner, reading and drinking tea. He's currently reading The Old Man and the Sea, and a young prostitute who occasionally chats with him asks whether the old man has caught the fish yet. He tells her no and she leaves after finishing her pie. At Home Mart, Robert's colleagues are curious about his past, and he often entertains them with light-hearted stories. Once he jokingly claimed to have been a backup singer for Gladys Knight and performed a little dance for them. Later that evening, Robert returns to the diner and encounters the same young woman. She comments on his new book, and they discuss how the previous one ended. Their conversation is interrupted when a limo pulls up outside. The girl, whose real name is Alina, receives a call from Slavy, her pimp. He orders her to go to the limo to service a client she dislikes, but despite protesting, Alina obeys. The following night, Robert sees Alina again, but this time she has a bruise on her face. He offers her a donut from the mart, and she surprises him by going over to sit at his table. She introduces herself as Alina, and gives him a CD of her singing, asking him to listen to it later. During their conversation, she deduces that Robert is a widower and still mourning his wife. He admits this, sharing that he reads books his wife never got the chance to read. Later that night they walk together after leaving the diner, but as they're about to part, a car pulls up. Slavy and his driver Tavi get out, and after talking for some time, Slavy hits Alina. Robert considers intervening, but Alina subtly signals him not to. Slavy then hands Robert a card with his contact information, suggesting he should get another girl from him later instead of Alina. When Alina stops showing up at the diner, Robert becomes concerned. He learns from the diner's owner that Alina was severely beaten, and is now in the hospital. Robert visits her but stays out of sight, seeing her face bruised and swollen. He also sees another girl, Mandy, crying by Alina's bedside. Later, as Mandy tries to get coffee, she spills it and Robert offers to help. He asks about Alina, and Mandy reveals that Slavy beat her because she fought back. She also shares that Slavy once threw battery acid on a girl's face to intimidate the other girls, showing no regard for their well-being, only for the money they brought him. After days of reflection, Robert decides to confront Slavy. He goes to the restaurant where Slavy operates, offering $9,800 to buy Alina's freedom. Slavy mocks the offer, saying Alina is too valuable to be let go for such a small amount. He ridicules Robert, but Robert calmly takes back his money and leaves. Just as he's about to exit, Robert has a rethink and then decides to lock the door instead, prepared to take a different course of action. Robert McCall carefully observes the men and their weapons before setting his watch and springing into action. He disarms one man by twisting his arm, causing him to shoot Slavy in the throat. He then smashes a shot glass into the man's eye, disabling him. McCall swiftly grabs a knife from another attacker and stabs him, before turning his attention to Tavi. With brutal efficiency, McCall plunges a corkscrew into Tavi multiple times, finally driving it under his chin, killing him. He then approaches a dying Slavy. McCall coldly tells him how much time he has left. Slavy, gasping for life, asks who he was. McCall doesn't answer, instead counting down the last seconds of Slavy's life. Then apologizing briefly, McCall leaves, cleans up, and enjoys a good night's sleep for the first time in a while. Meanwhile, Teddy, a Russian mob boss, arrives in Boston to investigate the deaths of Slavy and his men. Working with corrupt police officers, Teddy initially suspects that the killings are the result of a gang war. At Home Mart, McCall learns that Ralphie, his friend and co-worker, has quit. Concerned, McCall visits Ralphie's mother's restaurant and finds Ralphie helping her rebuild after a fire that, Ralphie tells him, was no accident. During his investigation, Teddy partners with one of the crooked cops, Frank Masters, and they track down a gangster named John Looney for information. When John insults Russians, Teddy responds by hitting him with an ashtray, while Frank guns down John's men. Teddy then savagely beats John until he is unconscious. That evening, Remar and Peterson, who are both cops too, demand protection money from Ralphie's mom and threaten to cause another accident if she doesn't pay on time. McCall confronts them outside the restaurant, stating that he wants to report a crime. The officers dismiss him, telling him to call 911. Unfazed, McCall calls one of the officers on his personal phone and shows them a video of their extortion of Ralphie's mom, including their confession to setting the restaurant fire. McCall gives them an ultimatum. Either return the stolen money or the video goes public. When the cops draw their guns, McCall swiftly disarms them and forces them to agree to their crimes. The next day, the cops were forced to return the money back to Ralphie's mother. A few days later, McCall is playing baseball with his colleagues when Ralphie arrives in his new security guard uniform, having passed his exam. At work, McCall goes to the cashier Jenny to make a complaint when he notices she's being silently robbed at gunpoint. McCall calmly hands over the money to the robber, and when the man demands Jenny's mother's ring, she pleads tearfully because it was a special gift from her mother. However, McCall gently took it and handed it over to the man. He refrains from acting as children are nearby, but he memorizes the robber's details, including his tattoos and car plates. The police inform him that this robber has struck several times before. To her surprise the next day, Jenny finds her ring back in the register, while McCall is seen returning a sledgehammer to its shelf after cleaning it. Meanwhile, Teddy continues to seek more information about Alina, confronting Mandy, who denies knowing much about her. Teddy forces Mandy to confess that she met a mysterious, kind black man asking about Alina at the hospital. After forcing her to divulge more information, Teddy strangles her for initially lying to him. Armed with this new clue, Teddy tracks down surveillance footage of McCall entering the restaurant on the night of Slavi's death but not leaving. Then posing as a detective, Teddy visits McCall's apartment. McCall, sensing something off, gives Teddy rehearsed answers and avoids revealing anything. Teddy leaves, suspicious but without solid proof. Digging further into McCall's background, Teddy finds nothing. Everything about McCall appears fabricated. One day he and his team, along with Frank, wait in a car while another henchman enters the diner where McCall is dining. Sensing the man's intent, McCall quickly disarms him, breaking his neck in the process. McCall cuts the power to the diner, and as he exits he takes photos of Teddy and his men in their car before walking away. McCall's home address eventually becomes known to the gangsters, who arrive in pursuit. As they break into his apartment, McCall prepares Honey to treat a gunshot wound he sustained at the diner. However, the men quickly realize that McCall isn't actually there. Instead, he's in another apartment, watching them via hidden cameras. He has left false clues suggesting he is leaving town, but Teddy, the mob enforcer, remains suspicious and senses they are being watched. In truth, McCall does leave town, but only to visit his old friends Brian and Susan Plummer. The three used to work together for a covert intelligence agency, and McCall now seeks Susan's help to investigate Teddy and his Russian Mafia connections. While Susan works on the investigation, McCall and Brian discuss an old car bomb incident in which McCall was presumed dead. Brian admits that, despite everything, Susan always felt that McCall had somehow survived. When Susan returns, she reveals that the men McCall killed belonged to the Russian Mafia, led by Vladimir Pushkin. Teddy, whose real name is Nikolai, is Pushkin's ruthless enforcer. Susan warns McCall that Pushkin's men will stop at nothing to eliminate him and anyone he cares about. Despite the danger, McCall decides to assume his old identity and finish what he started. McCall soon tracks down Frank Masters, who is working for Pushkin, and traps him in his car after connecting a hose from the exhaust pipe. McCall then forces him to reveal Pushkin's operations or face suffocation. Giving in, Frank leads McCall to a warehouse where the Russian mob sorts and stores massive amounts of money. McCall neutralizes the guards and ties them up, leaving them for the police to find. He then frees the workers, giving them a parting bonus from Pushkin's money, and handcuffs Frank to a post, urging him to finally do the right thing. McCall convinces Frank to hand over vital information he had stashed for leverage. When the police arrive, they arrest the gangsters and discover the large sum of cash. McCall eventually retrieves Frank's safety deposit box, which contains money, passports, and a USB drive with detailed information on Pushkin's operations, including names of law enforcement and politicians on his payroll. McCall anonymously sends this data to the detective handling the warehouse bust. He also destroys one of Pushkin's oil tankers and his warehouse. Meanwhile, Teddy, still in pursuit of McCall, hires a group of Russian hitmen to kill him. While having dinner with the leader of the group, Teddy is interrupted when the leader goes to the restroom. Moments later, McCall sits across from Teddy and places the leader's blood-stained glasses on the table, indicating he has already killed him. McCall offers Teddy a chance to walk away and end the conflict, but Teddy arrogantly refuses. McCall then hints that he will continue his mission, and then walks away. Teddy eventually discovers a photo of McCall with Ralphie, walking on the street, and seizes this opportunity to hurt McCall. His men kidnap Ralphie, Jenny, and other Home Mart workers, holding them hostage and threatening their lives. Teddy demanded a meeting with McCall. They track McCall's phone and wait for him at the site of the tanker explosion. But when the men got to the bus where McCall was, he wasn't there. So Teddy prepares to kill one of the hostages, but suddenly, music starts playing over the store's speakers. Then, McCall silently eliminates two of the kidnappers, luring them away and dispatching them with deadly efficiency. In the dark warehouse, McCall hunts down the remaining men using tools and materials he finds to create lethal traps. He kills several of the men using barbed wire, knives, and a nail gun. Though wounded in the process, McCall manages to defeat a larger thug. When Ralphie attempts to help, he is shot by one of the remaining thugs. McCall then tricked another thug into entering a break room rigged with gas canisters, causing a deadly explosion. Teddy is the last man standing. He finds Ralphie in hiding and goes after him. He is about to kill him when McCall intervenes, shooting Teddy multiple times. He then approaches and delivers a final shot to Teddy's throat. 3 days later, McCall sneaks into Pushkin's mansion in Moscow while the mob boss is showering. McCall manipulates the lights and causes the sink to overflow. Pushkin attempts to call for help, but McCall has disabled the alarms. When Pushkin steps into the flooded area, he is electrocuted, and McCall is seen walking past Pushkin's dead guards as he exits the house. Returning to Boston, McCall is approached by Alina, who has recovered from her injuries and started a new life. She thanks McCall for his help, hinting that she knows he was her rescuer. She gives him a kiss on the cheek before they part ways. Towards the end of the movie, McCall resumes his peaceful life but with a renewed sense of purpose. He posts an ad offering help to those who feel hopeless. One evening at the diner, he receives a request for assistance. His response is simple: "Yes,